right. It is episode 42, Pass the Mic for Friday, September 16th. Mike Peyote here. We're back on Zoom. Mr. Michael Gerasi, how are you?
Take it off the rack. If it's whack, put it back. I like the Whop Up, leap the Big Mac. You got to know that one. Mandy Scheffler called this one. She said you would get it.
Vanilla Ice.
It's Rob Bass. It takes two.
Oh man, yeah. Sorry, I should have got that. I probably should have had that one. By the way, this is probably like our latest ever. We're crunch time here. It's dark over my shoulder. It is after open house. We're recording this on the 15th. We're pushing it to the limit, so I'm gonna have to do some late editing. And speaking of that, with our feedback, last week's episode, I had another mistake. Somehow, the end of a previous episode ended up in the last couple minutes of the previous episode, the audio, and I don't know how it happened. I listened to it. There was like 5 extra minutes. It was old audio, and we sort of got thrown off anyway because I wasn't able to use the Zoom video. There's no video of last week's because my wife wasn't happy because she was caught like crawling out of like a room over here over this shoulder. So we didn't use the video. It was a mess to begin with. So. I listened, yeah, but it was fine. We also got feedback from Coach Saavedra about dressing up for interviews, and he talked about how he would wear for these Zoom interviews. He would dress up from the waist up. Yeah. And but the importance of dressing up. And then Miss Browning did not like she says that question about your weakness. Weakness. Yeah, that needs to be rephrased. And maybe it does. Like that's sort of like
I agree. I think
think her point was really good. Right. Instead of weakness of like looking at how can you problem solve or along those lines. So
back to Coach Saavedra there. I don't know if I said this on the show before or not, but 2 years ago when we were doing everything Zoom, I did parent-teacher conferences with a shirt and a tie, and I did, show the page. I stood up and I had shorts on.
The old Ron Burgundy news anchorman trick, right?
Right.
Yeah. But so hopefully some people some people got some tips for job advice or interview advice from that episode. Any other feedback you got, or are you ready to jump into your mic of the week?
Let's jump into the mic of the week. I mean, the same general feedback. I did get, I'm going to backpedal on that and just say I did get a little bit as well about the job interviews. I think people are kind of taken aback by that. Thinking back on one of the text threads I'm on, some surprise that question is asked as well.
Maybe that's just an education thing.
And maybe it is, but again,
maybe it was a Mr. Laginus thing. That was always his.
No, I've been on several where that question was.
Oh, so it survived that regime. Okay.
Yeah. That's an old name there. Anyway, okay. Moving on to my mic of the week. I'm going to date myself a little bit and go all the way back to an inspiration. Mike Utley, thumbs up, in honor of the Lions opener last week. They're 0-1, just like the year of the thumbs up injury. They started 0-1 that year too, then won 5 in a row. Let's hope history can repeat itself. But Mike Utley, for those who don't know, he was a Lions offensive lineman who was paralyzed in the game in 1991. And as he was going out and leaving the field on a stretcher, he gave the thumbs up gesture, trying to calm people's fears. And it sort of became the inspirational theme. The Lions won 6 in a row to close the year that year, won their only playoff game in our lifetime, hosted their only playoff game, one of 2 playoff games in our lifetimes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I was at the other one where they lost late. And it was fun. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. So that was a great year. And then Utley had gotten hurt. Then another Lions offensive lineman by the name of Eric Andelsack was out doing flowers and was tragically killed. And then, the next couple of years. Yeah. So
who were the Lions playing when Utley got hurt again?
I believe it was the Los Angeles Rams.
That's what I thought. I thought it was the LA Rams. I was at that game, and but that's back in my era of season ticket holder. I went to the Dallas playoff game, actually road trip to RFK the week after that and witnessed that game. But so that you're right. I believe it. I wanted to remember saying it when at that point it was LA before they went to Seattle. I mean, to St. Louis, and then before they came back to LA. But and really it wasn't that violent looking of a play. If you go back and it was a freak play, really. It doesn't, you've seen worse hits, right? Like, or
Yeah.
worse things happen in the NFL, but I guess, just the way the bodies get hit. Excellent, great choice, and that was you don't see him as much as he used to be quite prevalent around the team.
Right.
He used to do a lot of appearances and stuff. I haven't seen him lately, but I still think he's in the area. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, good point. I don't know. And
for a while he was always around, and then now
Right.
you don't see much. So I don't know how that works. So
we had history replay itself. I want to say it was probably about 8 or 9 years later. Reggie Brown.
Were you
at that game as well?
I was at that game as well, and again, another similar thing. Did not look that awful of a hit. I've seen many worse hits, and it's just the way the bodies hit, I guess. And again, his was much more. Not that Mike Utley's wasn't obviously dangerous, but like there was a risk of loss of life for Reggie Brown in that field.
Yeah.
That was
and Mike, if you remember correctly, and we don't need to go down Lions memory lane here, but if you remember correctly, that game, there was a few other facets to it. Number one, the Lions were trying to get in the playoffs that day. Number two, Barry Sanders was pushing 2,000 yards. And so there was all these storylines, and you kind of ask yourself, am I allowed to cheer? This guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. They were like worried that his life was in danger. So you didn't know if you could cheer, if you were allowed to. Then Barry did his thing, and it was kind of cool. And it was, man, but it was like history repeating itself in that one.
Yep.
Because it was very eerily similar.
And again, the Lions are the only organization that, if you go way back, had a player die on the field back in the old days at Tiger Stadium. So who knows? Maybe they're just jinxed with that. All right, our education topic this week. We're now about 2 weeks in, right? And this is really only our first full week. We're fresh off of open house, which was a great event that was put on today. Outside, beautiful weather again. The food trucks were there, fun and games. But the education topic we want to talk with is maybe like what do you miss? A throwback from the earlier days in education that is long gone, that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? And we've sort of hinted at some of these in the past when we joke around about testing and that sort of thing and the freedom in our rooms. But I think there are some things we can still talk about of what do you miss? And again, my first year was fall of 98. I actually did some replacement teaching in the spring of 98 to start, but fall of 98 was when I was full-time hired at the high school. And you were what?
Officially at Carlson, my first year was fall of 03. Unofficially, but that's why I came in right around Halloween.
So again, sort of like in the similar window. I think things, I had the 98, 99, probably a little older. I was still like on paper grade books and that sort of thing. And, but we're pretty similar. So what are some things you missed from that really aren't around anymore?
So you know what, I actually am going to steal that one. What you just said, I actually, and I broke away from it probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Books in general are becoming somewhat of a thing of the past. And, I don't want the listener to think we don't do any reading anymore or anything like that. But, at least in the socialized area, a lot of our readings are much more selective. So to use a basic textbook, I don't want to say is an antiquated idea, but it certainly is changing. And, now it's a lot more focused on specific readings. I mentioned before I use a Stanford website for a lot of the stuff I use. But the grade book, I don't miss putting the grades in by hand, but I do miss the lesson planning book. The way that thing was organized so well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
The box, the 5x6 box grid system.
Yes. Some of them even had you had the ability to put your standards and benchmarks. I'm not going to totally teach or geek out on you here, but you had to put that in there just in case, and so I really kind of miss that. I do everything digitally now. I'm not a very organized person, so to do things digitally is much better for me. It's one less little book I have to have, but I do miss that part of education. So I'm going to say the standard lesson plan book.
The old lesson planning book. Okay, I have two. One of them ties into that. My first one is, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not an anti-phone guy. I'm a realist with this. I love my smartphone, but I sort of just love the era pre-phone that the kids you weren't competing with that with the kids, and it wasn't and again I want to preface this right there. I don't live in a fantasy world. You're not putting that toothpaste back in the tube.
Right.
Okay, I see that some legislators in Lansing want to pass a law to outlaw phones in schools. Now, Officer Seiferd's gonna be running all over, I guess, every building on a Segway, handcuffing kids and booking them. I mean, the revenue for Gibraltar and Brownstown is going to go through the roof, just like every school.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a perfect example of people in Lansing having no clue of the stuff they talk about. But and again, my beef isn't even with the fact that they have them, or some of the stuff gets blown out of proportion, like bullying or whatever. But just the idea that for kids just have some point of where they're not always just face in it, that there's other things that they could take in and enjoy in a day. And we sort of talked about these things, and again, concerts or whatever, that just to have that wasn't an issue. It wasn't a issue of there just being a distraction.
Yeah.
Again, I'm totally a realist. I know that their benefits to me outweigh the negatives, personally, in my opinion. So I don't have a problem with it now. I'm not saying like we should lock them up or whatever. They just need to be managed. And, all of us, I need to learn some self-control. Like I said, I'm becoming a TikTok, addict here, and I got to learn to put stuff down. But just an era where, we could go a kid would go without a day without getting a text from the parents or people bothering them or somebody else bothering them or interrupting them. So just that's something, again, that totally is gone and it's never coming back.
Right.
The second one is more along those lines that you had. I miss writing stuff longhand.
Yeah.
Not just me as a teacher, but having kids write longhand, writing responses and writing papers and writing essays, and that's totally gone now. I mean, that is, I always used. I told before I lost touch with the classroom, even back as computers were starting to come out, I tell kids I prefer writing, and I always did. I liked writing my first draft pen and paper, even when I had the ability with a computer. I just liked it better because to me, the revision and editing process is just, I'm better at getting my ideas out on pen and paper. And now that whole era is gone.
Yeah.
And I tell kids, like I said, I got my show notes here. I still use like a notebook for that. I have a calendar that I use pen and paper for. So I still hold on to it with some things, but you don't see it at all anymore. Like very rarely, like who is writing longhand anything?
So I told my oldest daughter, because she's kind of like me, very unorganized, and I've even suggested to her, maybe you don't even start taking notes except for math class. And we both know, studies have shown, I hate to sound geeky here again, but studies have shown that writing things helps you memorize.
Writing notes longhand, yes.
But I also think that for her sake, again, she's carrying too much stuff around. She has too much stuff. I think digital sometimes might be better for her in that regard. I want to come back to the phones thing for a second. I too am a realist. I do think there are benefits. I do have a problem though. Sometimes I think, whatever they have in their phones can be more entertaining. So I do, the point you made about they have to be managed, I think they do. And so I think it's the toothpaste is not going back in, as you said. At the same time, there has to be some sort of, where does this end? Like at what point does it end? And I guess that's my biggest fear, because it's progressively getting worse. And really, any subject I'm teaching, if you think of history specifically, it's really hard to compete any subject with what they're getting in.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're right. You can't compete with it. You can't. I mean, right. Think about it. Like even us as adults, you get bored with something. What's the first thing you do when you start getting bored, whether it be in a meeting or a PD or anything like that? Right. I mean, it's just human nature. It's sort of like breathing or taking a drink when you're thirsty. You know, that's what you go to. Also, back to something you said too about books. The good thing is most kids want to read for reading for enjoyment. They still want physical books. But you're right. Like I remember back 5-7 years ago when we first got this software to do textbooks, I was checking out 4 books to a kid about. And now most kids, if any, they're getting like 1 book.
Yeah.
Like, there's not many. It's crazy.
We can't put you out of business.
No. I'm talking about textbooks.
Yeah, right.
People still use the library, but textbooks, it's nothing like it used to be. You used to have to lug around 4 textbooks, and now even my daughter at college, I think I talked about this last week. Like I was shocked. She's taking 16 hours, and she told us she only needed 2 books.
Wow.
So it's even like I don't know. Maybe it's
thought about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. You would have thought the place they still want to milk you is college, and at least this semester she has.
It just makes me think too. The other thing is thinking of the library now. We used to compete with each other to get the library lab. Oh
Yeah.
man, that was just let listener know there
were battles.
It got nasty.
Staff meeting battles.
Yes. Now that's obviously a thing of the past, but the new thing is to get the space of the library. It's really
the
convenient.
workspace.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's you can, especially when you're putting your kids out there to do something, to give them that space. It's pretty neat.
And what's crazy is the space didn't change at all.
No.
As far as the physical size, the room is
Right.
still the same size. They just refurnished it.
Yeah.
And redid the layout. Remember we had floor bookshelves. We really opened it up the floor.
Yeah.
The space. So yeah, now it's just as popular just as a place to work.
Right.
Which I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Hey. All right. So that said, we'd love to hear what maybe some of you veteran teachers have as what you miss throwback wise. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that. Man, think about how crazy it was. We didn't have phones in the room, so no one could really bother you, like throughout the day. That's another thing that I just thought of now as I was about to go out of this segment. Is there was no, if someone needed to get you, they'd send the hall monitor up to the door,
right?
And like they'd have to physically come and get you.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I got my phone, old Mark Nyholm, my captain, thought it'd be so funny to prank me, and
as if these. You couldn't see who was calling you or whatever.
And he just loved it. Yeah.
But that's another thing that's from a different era. Like now it's just expected. You have a phone in your room that is accessible from everybody and that sort of thing. So
yeah.
As we draw here into mid-September, it's time for fall in Michigan, although the weather looking like this weekend, we're getting up into the mid 80s. So much for that. But we thought we'd do a little and we're getting very close to our 1 year anniversary, which is going to be towards the end of October. Our first episode was like late October because it lined up right with me being done with cross country.
Right.
But I'm going to do a little overrated, underrated Michigan fall time, which a lot of our overrated, underrated from when we first started was around Halloween. And again, Halloween's still a fall holiday. If really, in my opinion, fall is like Labor Day to what, like Thanksgiving, probably, would you say?
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, is that the window? So what? Yeah, that's, even though winter officially isn't really till late December, but I mean, there's you're not going to say Christmas is in the fall. I mean, that's ridiculous. So what do you got as your overrated for Michigan fall?
Okay. So preface by saying I lived in Southgate on a corner house with a whole bunch of trees. So when the fall came, the amount of leaves I would have to rake was just astronomical. I had it down to a science. What I would do is during the week, and they don't come down till October, but during the week I get 1 bag a day, and then on the weekends I do 3 each day, and that would take me all the way up to the point I ended up doing like 60 or something per fall. So when people talk about how the colors of the leaves are changing, they're so like that brings back bad memories for me because all the raking I had to do. So I'm going to leaves again. It's
okay,
personal,
so two interesting points. One, I don't know what it is about being down here in Brown. My leaves on my trees in my front yard do not come off till like December. I don't know if it's like global warming or if things have changed, but sometimes my leaves come down and there's snow, and they do not fall in the fall, I guess I'd say. So I don't know if that's an issue where you are, but I'm going to go right with you, and I'm going to even go above that because again, you tied it in with your own bad memory. I think it's like even these things like, oh, drive up north, this valley of trees. Here's the season, the dates. If you're this far up north, all overrated. Who wants to go drive? What's the difference? The trees up in your Traverse City or the trees right here in Lake Erie Metro Park? And again, it's just they're changing colors. They're leaves. It's nothing that great. It is these. You're absolutely right. This is one factor that is definitely just something that people have blown out of proportion and being overrated. People go on trips to look at them and whatever. It's leaves changing color. If you have trees in your front yard and you live in a colder climate, you can wait and see them change in your front yard. You do not have to go on a special trip. There's nothing. What's different? Nothing. Overrated. You're wasting your money. Yeah, I mean, you want to rent out my house Airbnb on Grove Boulevard. The trees will eventually change. It'll be December. I'll make you some spiked cider or whatever else you want. Yeah. So go ahead, but that one's definitely overrated. I don't know. I'm right with you. We didn't talk about this one before, but we definitely agree. Overrated. Leaves changing. I don't need to see the map that tells me when it hits in the UP and when it hits in Gaylord and when it hits in Troy and then when it's way down here in downriver. So okay, we both agree on that. probably will anger some people, maybe some housewives. I don't know. All right, what is your underrated fall Michigan aspect?
Underrated fall aspect, and this I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of disagreement on this. But I don't think you could rate this high enough. Pumpkin.
Oh, you
Pumpkin.
might get, yeah, that's a big one.
I know some people feel like it's overrated, man. I don't think I don't think they sell it enough. I would love it all year round as a thing. And you could order your pumpkin spices on Amazon and stuff like that. But to me, I can't get enough pumpkin. I think it's underrated. Like I love it in my coffee, cappuccino. I just had some pumpkin custard about a week ago from a custard corner there. Best custard in Downriver.
Yeah, underrated.
Yes.
Compared to another place downriver.
Right. Which ironically I had tonight. So to me, man, you just cannot get enough pumpkin. And again, I know I'm gonna get some pushback on this, but I think it's you can't give me enough pumpkin.
So are you a pumpkin pie fan?
Not as much as you would think based on what I just said.
Based on what you just said. What about pumpkin roll?
Yes.
Yeah, better than pumpkin pie.
Better than pumpkin pie, which is weird. Okay. I know it doesn't make a ton of sense, but pumpkin pie is not, I'll eat it. But I don't, my mom used to make really good pumpkin pie. I've never had anything that matched up to that, much like her lasagna. So maybe that's the bar is too high with that, to quote Marty Morningwig. So but man, pumpkin spice latte, man, and I know I'm gonna get some ridicule about that too.
I don't think so. I mean, if you enjoy it, there's nothing wrong with. I mean, like, and what about? Have you tried the pumpkin pie blizzard at Dairy Queen? I know we did.
I have not. Not a big blizzard guy though. So.
Oh, okay, it's okay. I mean, there's better blizzards, but for my underrated, and fall is my favorite time of year here in Michigan. I'm gonna make that perfectly clear for a number of reasons: holidays, the sport. I like the football time, this or that. But for me, if it's a typical fall day, and I'm not talking about like this Saturday where it's going to be 85, right? I'm talking about the typical fall day where it's cool and crisp in the morning, mild and perfect midday, and cool and crisp in the evening. Almost sort of like when I go on my walk in the morning and I can still wear shorts and a t-shirt or shorts and a long sleeve shirt and it's cool.
Yeah.
In the day, it's warm, but it's not hot and I'm sweating. And then at night, if you want to have a fire or sit outside on your patio, you still can. And it's cool. It is the true fall Michigan day weather-wise are underrated. Those are the best days of the year. Best weather days of the year. You don't need your air on. You don't need your heat on.
Right.
Maybe in the morning, you do need your car just to warm up a little bit. But again, perfect days. We had this week on on Monday, it was perfect. It was actually almost a little too cool in the afternoon. It didn't get quite warm enough. And then Tuesday was a little too warm, but again, those mornings and afternoons were about as perfect as you can get. Those, to me, that is underrated. And that is one reason, as much as I knock Michigan, and I know I'll rip on Michigan in the winter when it's brutally, awfully cold and bash on the Four Season people. But that's one thing about Michigan. You get these days like this now in September, when September into like mid-October, right? Where you get those days, and totally underrated. Best days of the year.
Okay. That's fair.
I know our boater friends won't like that, and our, some of our, people that like swimming and stuff outside, but
yeah.
We'd love to know what your overrated, underrated are about Michigan. I'm sure someone's going to say something like the apple orchard or whatever, but we both know how we feel about those. So, what do you have as your hot?
I gotta say, I'm not anti-apple orchard. I'm not. I just the bees make it much less.
The bees are awful. Speaking of the bees, I got stung at the Marauder meet on Saturday, and that is the one bad part about this weather. It seems like these bees know when it's their last hurrah.
Yeah.
So when it gets a little cool in this stretch where we need this frost to just knock them all out. And I'm sorry for you, environment. But I mean, I got stung, and again, I'm not one of these people. People were shocked around me because I got stung, and I don't know how. I sort of went, ow, I got stung, and I flung it. I flung it off it was in the bend of my knee. And, and it had been a while. The last time I think I got stung was like years ago, but man, it burns for like about, 90 seconds. And then the worst part is that it itches for the next 3 days. And like, but people around you think you're like crazy. I'm like, it doesn't really hurt. I mean, I don't know. What do people want?
I mean, it's not startling, like it just hits you.
It is, but I mean, people act all afraid. And if you have an allergy, I get it. But if you don't have an allergy, it's not going to kill you. There's worse pain. Oh, yeah. Like, would you rather get stung by a bee or slam your hand into a car door? I'd rather get stung by the bee.
True. Yeah, so, without question.
Yeah.
I I got stung actually at the Tiger game. I was at the Tiger game when Cabrera got his 3,000. I got stung that day. I put my hand on the rail and boom, I got stung.
Ooh.
And it's startling. It's startling.
And it burns. It's
right. My hand puffed up a little bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And again, I know there's people that have allergies. I don't want to downplay that. That's obviously very serious. So, what is your hot mic take for the week?
Man, I am stuck between two of them. I'm
you want me to go? You want me to go first, or do you want to?
You go first, yeah, because I'm still
my hot mic take of the week. I'm going to branch back to last week a little bit, but this is going to tie in. Remember last week I sort of made the shocking statement of that to me attending concerts was, or maybe a week or two ago, that to me attending concerts are now more enjoyable than going to pro sporting events and going to pro football games, right? So I just clicked off. I'm watching on the Amazon Prime the Chiefs versus the Chargers. Very big game for Thursday. And this last weekend, I watched Red Zone all day Sunday, switched to the Steelers-Bengals game, which was a great game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed all day Sunday.
Congratulations on that. That was a good win for your team.
Big win. Congratulations, Coach Tomlin. One of the best. However, Monday morning, I'm scrolling through Twitter like I normally do. I see a brawl downtown Detroit, Lions fans beating the crap out of Lions fans. I see a fight from the crowd in Tennessee, two women going at it, throwing a tray of concession food, which I couldn't believe. I mean, that was a good, I'd have to be really mad at somebody to chuck $35, $40 worth of food. You'd have to really do something to take me off. So two women doing that. Rams fans fighting in the streets of LA against each other, fighting each other. And then a Bengals fan, this woman violently puking in the stands.
I missed that one.
I didn't show you that one. That was on Twitter too, like just heaving and puking right in her seat down, like, and again, and I'm not talking like a 22-year-old that had too much fun out in the sun. I'm talking like a woman like in her 50s or 60s that should know better. And I'm like, why is this like, and I said today, I was talking to our assistant principal, Mr. Mall, like I look at these, like, I don't want to go to these. I don't want to go and see this. Again, I would rather go to a concert and not have to deal with this. And it's something that the NFL, somehow it just slides by. And I think they are the worst of the big four. There is no doubt. We joke around about the days in the Silverdome. If there were cell phones back in those days, some of the fights that I saw in there.
Yes.
And I again, have I had many beverages to drink at Lions games back in those days? Yes. So I'm not here trying to be all pious and high and mighty, but like who's driving these people home, and who do you care that much about with the Detroit Lions that you have to fight somebody? I don't understand.
So the one I saw those other ones too. The one I saw that you didn't mention was Las Vegas Raiders. It said, of course, yes, that's what it said, like shocker Raiders fans or something like that. But again, this is everywhere. Like, and I know the Raiders fans really, they kind of take pride in it, to be honest with you, but it's everywhere. And you're right. It's generally exclusive to the NFL. I can't think of any other sporting event that I've been to. You know, I remember going to a Piston game about 7 or 8 years ago where there was a couple sloppy drunk people in front of me, but they weren't like, there wasn't anything violent at all. Why does the NFL breed this?
It's not cheap. Like, you know, we were talking about going to Pine Knob, like the beers were $14.75 each. I had one because I'm like, I'm not dropping $30 on 2 beers. Like I'm not going to do it, no matter how much I wanted to fist bump to, you know, Don't Stop the Party by Pitbull. It wasn't going to happen.
Right.
But like at NFL, and I guess I get it. There's tailgating before, but still, they're not. It's not like they're not selling the beers in the stadium too. Again, it just reaffirmed my decision that, you know what, looking at these videos, not only that the Lions lost, but just that this did not happen at the concert. I'd rather just go to a concert. So reaffirmed everything I saw this weekend on Twitter and I get it. That's a collection of 20 Lions fans that were at a game of 60,000, right? That's always sort of like what happens, right? We attach the bad to the 5% or 3% of fans that are idiots, and then the other people were able to handle themselves. So, but we also know that just because we only saw this one fight on video, there were probably others, and there were probably other idiots in the crowd, especially with Philadelphia fans being in town. I'm willing to bet that there were some areas of Ford Field that probably weren't the best to be around.
No, and you know, I was just thinking as you're talking too, I don't even think, I mean, I've been to a number of Michigan games. I went to Eastern game or two. I went to Michigan Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I can't remember. I don't ever remember a fight at a college football game. There's something about the NFL.
Yeah.
Real Sports did a segment on it some years back. It was really disturbing to watch. As a dad with daughters, there's one Saints fan in San Francisco during a playoff game, and he had his daughter who couldn't have been older than 9. And these 49er fans were yelling every horrible thing to this young girl you could possibly imagine.
Jeez.
Like, it's like, man, that what on earth would prompt
all
you?
over a game that doesn't impact your life at all.
Right.
Yeah. You don't get a bonus check from Roger Goodell if the Lions win a Super Bowl.
We talked about it the other day. It's like, those. I guess I'm defeating most of what I just said with one incident, but again, this was exceptional with the malice at the palace. For when those guys confronted the Indiana Pacers players like they were.
Yeah, we talked about that. That. Ben Wallace would sooner knock those Detroit fans out before he would knock Ron Artest out.
Right.
That's a fact of the matter.
But again, that was a totally exceptional circumstance at a game that
yes.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So my hot mic, I'm going to go. I came across this quote this week, and baseball fans are going to come at me on this one, but Don Mattingly spoke about how baseball is becoming unwatchable. Donnie Baseball.
By the way, I don't want to interrupt your thing. The Pirates are on Fox television.
Yeah,
today.
What is going on with that tonight?
I think it's Roberto Clemente Day. I don't know. I heard them mention it. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's shocker. The Pirates and the Mets are on Fox on a Thursday night.
Caught me off guard.
It's because of Roberto Clemente. The only thing the Pirates can cling to in 2022 is a guy that played back in the mid to late 70s. But go ahead.
My thought was it must be the Mets or in the pennant chase. Them and the Braves are kind of going back and forth. It's getting really tight. So that was my only thought. But what you're saying makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, and again, I'm jaded around here because if the Tigers were in a pennant chase right now, I'd be watching. But for Don Mattingly, I do think. And we have to look at the ratings. I do this a lot of times and make fun of, really to get Max Bailey and Kent Sikora irritated with me. But the fact that I think baseball, I think they have a problem. And we talked about the NFL putting aside all the fights and stuff week 1. They get everything they want. Those games were just amazing. Baseball has to figure this out because it's dying in so many areas.
I mean, and let's just take a look at the Tigers and Pirates, for example. By July, after the All-Star break, there was no need to watch either of those two teams.
No.
And you're only halfway through the season.
Right.
This doesn't happen in the NFL. I mean, every once in a while you get an NFL team that starts off 0-8 or 0-9, but even the bad teams, they pick up and win a game here or there. That in the hunt graphic is pretty large halfway through the NFL season. There are teams in Major League Baseball that are done before the All-Star break. Like there is no, I get annoyed when the sports shows on 97.1 The Ticket get called off early because the Tigers are going to be on. Because I don't want to hear them. I don't want to hear them. I want to, and that's the way it was. Not just for, and there are other cities. I'm just using Pittsburgh and Detroit as examples because they're awful. But you can't have a sport survive when half the season doesn't matter. Like the people are already done. They don't care.
Right.
And that's what you have.
Cabrera got his 3,000th hit this year. I was that was a great moment,
Yeah.
What else do the Tigers have to look back on this year and hang their hat on? Nothing.
Yeah.
And you're saying the same thing about the Pirates. There's nothing.
I mean, the Pirates, the first half of the year before they traded Vogelbach to the Mets, I liked it because here's this big fat guy hitting home runs and stuff. And then they got rid of him. And there's nothing to enjoy. It's that sport is in trouble. And the people can say whatever they want, apple pie, whatever, but what's a kid in Pittsburgh right now that even likes baseball going to do? What's a kid? I mean, first of all, are there kids that even? I mean, my son went to the Rockies game. He knew some of these players and stuff, especially from the Dodgers. Shocker, with their $240 million payroll. But he enjoyed the game. He was more. He's definitely my kid. He was more excited about what he could get to eat there and than what was going on in the field. So.
Yeah, I'm not. I came across the quote. I'm just like, wow, Don Mattingly. And his was more about defenses and
shift.
It was a quote the shift. It was from a couple years ago, and he was sort of just talking about the no hitters how frequent they were. Because remember a couple years ago, I mean, Tigers pitcher, oh God, his name escapes me right now. He got hurt this entire year, but he wasn't like the greatest pitcher. You know, he was serviceable, maybe number 3, number 4, if you know he could before his injury, maybe he could become that. But and he had to know, God, man, I cannot remember his name, but nonetheless, like Mattingly was sort of like maybe this isn't such a good thing, and baseball is becoming unwatchable. He used the word unwatchable. So
that and then like I said, these payrolls, there are just teams that from day one aren't competing.
yes, right.
And the NFL has the total opposite. We talked about this at work the other day. If the NFL didn't have a cap, the Cowboys would not have been this bad for so long. Jerry Jones would have made it a way where the Cowboys would have not have been. And the NFL prevents that. The NFL allows a small market team like Cincinnati, if you draft well and the guys fall into your lap, to make the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the Rams are spending a lot of money and they won the Super Bowl last year, but the Bengals were right there with them. The Bills are probably better than them this year.
Yes.
Like, and so that's one thing that the NFL has. And as both of us being union guys, we even admitted baseball union's a strong union, man. And
it is.
A salary cap would not be a strong union thing, but it would make the sport better. So
something to bring some parity into this.
Yep. Well, we'd love to hear what people think. We're sorry. We hope the old here come the bullying tweets from the baseball snobs coming. I'm sure they can. I mean, who are they going to be cheering for in the playoffs? The Dodgers, I guess, probably with their payroll.
Maybe the Yankees.
The Yankees, I don't think are in the running. I think they're bad. I don't know who's winning.
No. They're still. They've had a horrible second half, but they're still in first place.
Yeah, that's why. When you spend that much money, you can buy yourself whatever you want. So, but we'd love to hear what anybody's feedback. It is 9:41 Eastern Standard Time here. I'm going to do some post production, so this will be up for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Hope everybody has a great week. What's your prediction for the Lions for week 2? Do they win the game?
We're gonna get a win, 28.
Because if not, I think it's panic in Motown.
Absolutely, 28-24 Lions win. Come from behind late.
Okay, all right. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna say the Steelers are gonna beat the Patriots. I think they're gonna have a better, even without T.J. Watt. I think that that Patriots team doesn't look good. Of course, I thought they were going to lose to the Bengals, so this means they're probably going to win. They're probably going to lose this game that I picked them to win. So
NFL is a hard game to predict. You think about what happened in that game, in that Steelers game, all the back and forth for them to win that.
Imagine we talked about sports betting. Imagine betting on that game. Now the Steelers covered. I think no matter what had happened, if you would have took the points, I'm sure they were getting so many points. But I mean, like, imagine like the swing going back and forth. You thought you won, you thought you lost, and that's why I don't gamble. So, all right, everybody, have a great week. We will see you next Friday.